Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 510. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the award-winning and internationally celebrated author, Melissa Addey. Melissa.
Hello. It's so nice to be back.
So we were just talking before the show started. You were on in 2022.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, every time there's a Winter Olympics, you come on the show.
Yeah, I specialize. That's my thing.
And to this day, I still remember the conversation we had, and we were talking about your books, that you did, these historical fiction books, and you were here to talk about From the Ashes and from the Colosseum series. Yeah. And I know you're here to talk about you're here to talk a little bit about the alliance of independent authors. Yeah. But real quick before we jump in, I want you, last time you were on, you're talking about that you're going to be working on Beneath the Waves.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
And you were just like, I was gobsmacked to hear about all the different things, because these were based off of real things that the Colosseum was doing, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a set of the idea was following the backstage team of the Colosseum, because I thought it's just not possible to put on games on the level you're talking about. I mean, it is like Olympics level. It's not possible to do that without a very large backstage team. And so I started a sort of series, a set of 4, and the idea was that each one would look at a different element. So it was fire, water, earth, air. So the first one had kind of Pompeii blasting off, and there was a big fire in Rome at the time while they're trying to inaugurate the Colosseum. And then Beneath the Waves, they were flooding the Colosseum. That's extraordinary that they even tried to do that, and sailing ships around on it and all of that. Crazy. And then on Bloody Ground, it was they built a whole hypergym below the arena, which is where they kept all these little dark tunnels where they kept all the animals, and they had amazing lift systems that would bring you up into the arena. If you've seen Gladiator, then you'll know suddenly trapdoors open and things arrive out of them. That's because there's a lift system underneath. And that was one of the things that made me think about it, was who's doing, like, somebody's watching that and going, release the tiger now. You have to get the timing right, otherwise it doesn't look good at all.
Right.
And then the Flight of Birds was the last one, and they put an awning over the Colosseum. But they did extraordinary things. They used to spray the crowds with perfumed water, and some of the stuff you read, you just think, I'm not sure we could do that now, let alone then.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, because you were talking about the research you were doing on those when you were here talking about From the Ashes last time. But you've been putting out books after books. How many books have you been putting out per year now? This is amazing.
I've been doing this 11 years, and I have 20 books, of which 15 are novels. The others are nonfiction and one children's book. But yeah, mostly historical fiction.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the Regency series, outside, that was already out.
Those are new ones. Yeah.
Those are the new ones.
Yeah.
The Moroccan Empire series was already out though when we talked, right?
Yes, that was correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
all
I think the ones that you haven't seen were the last Colosseum ones, and then the Regency series. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you are someone that wears many hats, and
I am.
You sent me an email, and you're talking about this organization that you're part of called the Alliance of Independent Authors. And I know my readers and viewers are like on the edge of their seats wanting to learn more about this, because a lot of them are independent authors, and they, I'm sure, are very curious about what the Alliance of Independent Authors is all about. So did you want to kind of give us a rundown on what the organization does?
Yeah, so it's a global association for self-published authors, and their focus is ethics and excellence in self-publishing. So they put out a lot of information to try and support indie authors, all through the stages. So they have things like a directory of self-publishing services that they've vetted for quality and value to make sure that you're not getting scammed and that you're not paying crazy sums of money for something that wasn't good value actually, and talking you through the different stages. Because if you're brand new to self-publishing, I mean, when I was brand new to it, you know, people go, oh, well, you get an editor and then you get a cover designer, and then you're thinking, I don't know where you get these people. I don't know how you ask them to do what you're supposed to do. I don't know anything about it. So they kind of talk people through all those stages. And then they do a lot of work for their members. And part of that is they have a kind of campaigns area, if you like. So trying to encourage awards and festivals and things like that to open up their doors to indie authors as well. There's a lot less snobbery now, but there used to be an awful lot of snobbery around indie authors, and that's kind of changing over time. And that's something that I've worked with them on. So I spend a little bit of my week doing work with them. And so, yes, that's part of what I do. One of the hats.
And so what would you say the problem that ALLi was trying to solve by building this?
So the organization as a whole started back in 2012, and they really wanted to. There was nobody for self-published authors, but more recently they've launched the Indie Author Bookstore, which is so exciting. So this is like a showcase of all their members' books. So there are thousands of books on there across all different genres, and it really came about sort of a number of different things that were happening in self-publishing, all of which that bookstore kind of draws from and contributes to, if you like. So one of the things that the Alliance of Independent Authors does is it works to draw more attention to indie authors, but also draw more attention to what's happening in self-publishing. So they put out a lot of self-publishing data every year. So they run their own indie author income survey. So they did that the first time in 2023, and they found out that actually indie authors earn more than traditionally published authors. So that was a very interesting piece of data. And also they've got other data across the years. So, for example, things like K-Lytics, who are a really interesting data analyst, looked at how much indie authors were present, if you like, in the general industry. So they were 50% of Amazon's top 400, and they were being rated by readers as equaling quality on the STARS system. So that sort of data is then something that ALLi goes about sharing more widely and trying to draw more attention to. Actually, you may not even know you've read indie authors, but clearly you have, because they're taking up such a big chunk of how many books are being read at the moment. So that was sort of an element. Also, more authors are starting to sell direct. So that's been an interesting thing, because the bookstore allows each author to set whichever purchase link they want. So it's not a selling site. It's more like a window shopping, and then at the point where you choose to purchase, the purchase link is set by the author, so they can go through to whichever retail site they want, or to their own website. And that's been something really interesting changing over the last 2 years. So the first time I saw the data for it, there was 12% of authors were selling direct. So it was obviously kind of outliers that were being quite brave about it. And then now it's 30% of authors are selling direct, and another 30% intending to over the next year. So that became quite an important thing for the bookstore, was to make sure that people could put their own links on there if they wanted to selling direct if they wished. Right. So that was something that we wanted built in there. So it's just sort of trying to reflect the fact that indie authors are just so much a part of the publishing industry now, and that whole early snobbery has really started disappearing. But right. Also, it's still, you cannot go onto any of the big retailers and press a button to say, I only want to see the indie authors. You can't do that. So having a whole lot, thousands of them all in one place, is quite an exciting thing to be able to look at.
Right, because it's like in a way the publishing world has always been gatekeepers to what they would consider quality, but now with the advent of independent media, for instance, where people will now listen to music that is that's indie created. People will now read Substack, which is basically like a version of independent journalists are now putting out
Yeah.
their own stuff. It just
Yeah.
seems to be, it's just like there's the democratization of being able to, of creativity, has made it easier people. And now, like you say, compared to where it was in 2012, fast forward 14 years,
It's a huge change.
is a huge change in the acceptability of what people consider themselves as indie authors now.
Yeah. And I think part of that, so one of the other things we saw was that authors under 45, it always used to be self-publishing was plan B. Like you tried to be trad published, and then if you couldn't do that, then plan B was self-publishing. And actually for younger authors now, that has become plan A, because they just go straight to that. And I think part of that is coming from, they see content creation in other fields. So YouTube is like TV to them. They don't have a kind of status thing to it. They don't go, oh, well, that is higher than that. They're like, same thing. And like you say, indie music, indie journalism, all of those things. And so to younger authors and readers, I think they just see that as the same kind of thing. Why wouldn't you self-publish? It's on a par with those. So that's been interesting to see that those younger authors are very keen to self-publish.
Well, and it's when I'm looking at this as well, and I'm on the website here, and it's the Alliance AllianceIndependentAuthors.org, and as you say, this is worldwide. People from all over the world are part of this organization. Huh?
Yeah.
And my question to you originally, I was going to ask when I was doing the research, is like how easy or complicated is it to go through the member bookstore? But it's super easy. It literally looks like a mini version of Amazon. You can click on different searches: adventure, children's fiction, arts and crafts, poetry, LGBTQ plus themes, disability stories, grief and well-being, society, creative art. There's
a lot. There's a lot. It's very much designed for readers. It's designed for you to browse and find books to read, and just exactly like you say, any big retailer is exactly that kind of experience, we hope. So I'm glad you find it easy to look through. That's because initially we always had information on our authors if you wanted to book them for festivals or whatever, but we did not have their books in a readable format, in a nice browsable format, and they are now. So that's been really fun to watch. Also, we had there's been a lot of things in the press about Gen Z readers actually being very keen, which is nice to know that the newest readers are very keen readers, but that they are looking for diverse stories. They want more diverse stories. They want diverse stories. They want diverse characters. They want a sort of wider range of experiences from their reading. And I think that because you don't have those sort of slightly tighter gatekeepers who are going, no, only this trend, you get that broader range of storytellers and stories as a result, which is really nice to see.
Well, and so where is this in relationship to like hybrid publishers?
So hybrid publishers, I'm always a little wary of them, only because this is not fair to all of them, but often people who know very little about self-publishing and are just coming into it will be approached by publishers who say, I am a publisher and I just think your book is so wonderful and fantastic. You pay me $5,000 and I will publish it. And then they don't understand how that system's working at all, and they think they have been published down the traditional route. What's actually happening is they are paying to be self-published, which would be completely fine to my mind, if the person doing that was very upfront and went, look, I offer the publishing services to help you get self-published, because it's a bit of a, it can be stressful and confusing the first time you do it. Therefore, you pay me, I'll organize it, but you are essentially self-publishing. And I would prefer there to be that clarity. What tends to happen, sometimes there are some good quality hybrid publishers who are publishing traditionally on one side, and they also offer publishing services, and they treat the people properly and they don't try to scam them. But sometimes that overlaps a little bit, so I'm always a little bit worried, because sometimes I meet people and they have been very badly treated by people purporting to be publishers, and I just kind of go, I would prefer you understood what happened there. And you can be self-published and pay for all the self-publishing services, but be better treated.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. One of the caveats to saying independent author is that there is a preconception that it is going to be lesser quality as compared to a published work. So how do you, when it comes to being a member, and this is amazing because you just mentioned too, bottom tier I've seen when I have hybrid, publishers send me some stuff and they're questions, I look at their rate. It's like, bottom tier is like $3,000 at a minimum. It's going to cost you $3,000 to go through that. But here, and this is amazing. Pulling it up to become a member here, it is only $119 a year, or if you're an author, about $150 a year.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us a little bit about what you would get, because that is a fraction of the cost it would be if you actually went through a hybrid publisher to do this work.
Yeah. So then they're not going to actually publish your book. That is your membership price. However, what you have then is you have access to, like I said, the list of self-publishing services. So that's where you would get yourself a good editor. You would find yourself a good cover designer, and you will know that those have been vetted for the quality, but also for the value, so that you're not being wildly overpriced for something, which I think is a really important part of that. And I always say to people, look, if you have the membership, then that will allow you to look for those self-publishing services and know that there is somebody has checked that for you and made sure that the people in that list are good quality, So that's an important part of it. And then being talked through all of those different stages. So they put out so much information. They have podcasts and they have blogs as well. And they'll talk you through all those different stages. And, at the beginning, it can be quite overwhelming if you don't know anything about self-publishing. But actually, the basic process, if you have the right people in places and the right tools in places, we'll just talk you through that. So the Alliance does have a little leaflet that talks you through how to do it absolutely for free, which is not entirely what we recommend, because you should put some money into it to make sure that you have a good quality product. But if you were absolutely zero budget, then it talks you through how to do it for free, and then at a certain point where you make a little bit of money, to retrace your steps and add in better quality services there to upgrade the book, because there is no reason why a self-published book cannot be just as good quality as a traditionally published book, because you can bring in editors who are working for big publishers, you can bring in cover designers, all of those things can be brought in to work with you. Self-publishing is always a bit of a misnomer, really. You generally end up working with a group of different creative people.
The benefit of being a self-publisher is that you're in charge of it all. It's like
you are.
Yeah.
It appeals to the control freak in me.
Yeah.
But it's quite a nice thing. People sometimes feel a little bit, worried about it or whatever. But I say actually a lot of it is fun. It's fun to work with a cover designer and talk to them about, what you're expecting and what the market expects and what could we do here. And then they'll show you designs. That's an exciting thing to do. And you can learn tools like this software for formatting the interiors, and that's quite exciting because suddenly you realize, I can put images across the front of each chapters and things like that. It's fun.
And so one of the biggest expenses for authors is finding a good quality editor.
Yes.
Now, where does ALLi help out with that?
So they have in their directory, they have lists which include editors. Because that's, as you say, that's one of the first things that at the moment where it stops being just you, that's probably the first person that's going to come in and work with you is an editor. So you can have structural editors who are really looking at the plot or how the whole shape of the book hangs together. Even for nonfiction, there's how is that structure developing. You can have line editors who are looking more at the grammar and how you're writing something, and then obviously you have proofing, and at that point we're just only concerned with the typos.
It is an amazing, like I'm looking at, I'm just, like I say, I'm just amazed about how affordable it is for authors to be a member of this. And is there, talk to us a little bit about like how the process goes. Do you vet authors at all to be members, or how does that work?
So associates come in and they haven't yet published a book. So they are getting ready to publish a book. So they come in like that. So they everybody's welcome. They come in and we try and give them the best quality advice and guidance on that. Then there's an author level where they are the authors. That means you've already published a book or more books. Some of them have huge back catalogs. So when I started talking to them about the bookstore, I was kind of encouraging some of the authors to make sure their books were on there. And I'm going, so how many books do you have? And they're like, well, I have 73 that I need to upload. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So huge back catalogs. I always thought I had a decent back catalog, but they're just way above me. So that's the authors. And then ALLi also has a level which is authorpreneurs. And the authorpreneurs they are vetted because they have a particular level that they need to have reached. So that is where they've made a certain level of sales. So that is every year. So that is to they're a level that would require more input on certain things. So it's 50,000 book sales in the past 2 years, or equivalent thereof if it's KU or whatever. So they're vetted for that particular level. Yes.
Okay. And so how do you help out? Because the other thing too I hear a lot about independent authors is I don't know how to market this. Like I love my book, but I'm a writer. I'm not a marketer. How does ALLi help with that?
So a lot of their material, because a lot of people, they really worry about the self-publishing bit. Actually, once you've gone through the process of self-publishing your first book, that process then becomes a lot easier because you've done it once, you understand the process. It then becomes almost entirely about the marketing because that's the thing that you've then got to get your head around. And marketing's one of those how long is a piece of string things. So there is what ALLi's really good at doing, I think, is kind of seeing the wood for the trees a bit. So they're very clear about certain things that are really useful for all authors to implement. So things like a website, a mailing list, those kind of things. And then sort of also introducing authors as role models who are kind of outliers, who might do really unusual things and unusual approaches to their marketing. But that is sort of we were talking about this recently, it's kind of, they're not people to imitate necessarily, but it is about thinking, how do I feel comfortable marketing? What sort of things do I enjoy doing? So like me, I like watching movie trailers at the cinema. I would happily watch hours of just the trailers. I think that's really fun. So I make little book trailers. If it's something that you're really into, then you're much more likely to be better at it with the marketing. So there's some really fun people on Book Talk and Instagram and things like that who kind of dress up and do little crazy character things to sell their books. And that, that's because they like dressing up and doing character things. It's really fun. And so I think what ALLi's good at doing is both sharing the kind of solid, reliable marketing things, but also drawing attention to those kind of quirkier marketing ideas so that you can see, oh, right, that could be a way of doing it, or what do I enjoy doing? What could I bring to the marketing?
And so what would you say then is, like, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but if an author hates marketing, what's the least miserable approach that still works?
Least miserable. I do think it's about finding what you are, like. Marketing isn't ever going to end. It's not a finite thing. It's not, if you do it for this year, then you're set and you'll never have to do it again. So what is it that you are prepared to do day after day, week after week, month after year? What are you prepared to do? So, like, if you think about it that way, you're better at choosing the right thing. So people go, which social media platform? I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Pick the one that you're going to be good on. Right. So, like, you have, like, the podcast, and some people would rather die than talk live on a podcast, right? They just curl up and, no, please. But you're really good at that, so that's what you do. But if there was something that you really hated, you'd probably not be very good at it because you hate it. So it comes across, So, yeah, so I would always encourage people to try and think of, if it's going to be forever, what can you bear to do forever? What do you actually quite like doing?
Right. And so what's your best, quote unquote, do this right now tip for any indie author listening?
The one that I always recommend to people is having a reader magnet. And a reader magnet is there for a number of reasons. It's an introduction to a reader magnet is, you have something, a piece of your creative work that you give away in return for someone's email onto your mailing list. And having a reader magnet presupposes a set of marketing things. So I'm cheating a little bit. It probably means you have a website. It means you have some book that this reader magnet is going to be linked to, that will act as an introduction to your writing. So I have a reader magnet, and the thing is, I give it away for free everywhere. But the point is, if you like that book, you'll probably like all my books. If you don't like that one, you probably won't like my writing. So there's no point continuing me coming after you, trying to encourage you to read my books. You either do or do not like it. So it's just a quick, easy way for people to get into your writing. And ideally, you get them onto a mailing list. And that then means you're not always shouting into the void and making cold calls. You're talking to a group of people who are delighted to hear that you have a new book out. So the other day, I posted a silly little video, and I had a cover of one of my books on, but it's an updated cover. So the picture had changed. And this woman immediately went, "Is that the same? Have you changed the cover?" And I said, "Yeah, the cover changed." And she went, "Oh, I thought it was a new book." And I was like, use one of my really good readers, because that's what you want. You want people to be so excited when you contact them that there's a new book out, that it doesn't feel like marketing at all. It just feels like telling people something they'd really like to know,
Now, so Melissa, if people want to join the Alliance of Independent Authors, do they just go there and just click on the button?
Absolutely.
And
yep.
Okay.
So if you go on their front page, there will be an immediate link through it. You're on the joining page, but even if you are on the home page, there will be a thing just to say go straight through here to join up. And then once you're a member, make sure to be on the bookstore. Otherwise, you'll be getting an email from me. I'm always nagging people. We ran an event recently, and I walked into the room, and every author in the room went, I'm uploading. Because I've been nagging everyone, going, make sure your book is on the bookstore. So, yeah. So, yeah, they were all just cringing away from me, going, oh, no, I will do it, I promise. But, when they've got 73 books to upload, it takes a little while.
Well, this is great. And also, too, for those that want to learn more about you and your books, they should also go to melissaaddey.com, and they can see your entire series. Over 4,000 5-star reader reviews. That is pretty darn cool.
Been very nice. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Melissa, you have to be coming on more often than every 4 years, though.
Okay. All righty. I'll come on more often.
Okay.
If you'll have me, I'll come.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.